The information on this podcast is my opinion and some internet research. Attention Sarkarians, embark on a cosmic journey at www.andrewvanzart.com, saving by clicking on our affiliate tab. Discounts await. Your click not only unlocks deals, but supports the beats and discussions of these stellar radio stations.
At Galactic ChatWave Radio.
Join the Sith and let the unlimited power of the discounts await you in the shopping. And for you musicians to get a discount on DistroKid. www.andrewvanzart.com, your portal to savings. May the discounts be with you.
What is thy bidding, my master?
Listen on www.andrewvanzart.com or the official Galactic ChatWave Radio app.
ChatWave Radio.
Hosted by Andrew Van Zart.
You're fulfilling your destiny.
Why not Puerto Rico? Alright, hello, this is Andrew Van Zark in Galactic ChatWave Radio. So, before we get started with the Sequel Trilogy and everything that I have to talk about this, my girlfriend on a future episode will give her thoughts, highlights, and everything that comes with the Sequel Trilogy after she has done watching all three of them. Because we've been rewatching them, we've been going through them, and we've been doing what we have to do to understand them all. And I love watching Star Wars many times. I don't get tired of this, so let's get it running. So a few years back, Daisy Ridley uncovered unplanned changes in Rey's story during Star Wars Sequel Trilogy. So Daisy Ridley, renowned for her role as Rey in the Star Wars Sequel Trilogy, recently unveiled the surprising details about her character, and her evolving story. Speaking on Jimmy Kimmel's Live, Ridley revealed how Rey's background shifted unpredictably during the trilogy's creation. Initially, various ideas floated about Rey's origins, including a possible connection to Obi-Wan, and however, as the films progressed, Rey's storyline transformed, painting her as someone disconnected from any major Star Wars lineage. Quoting here, it went from that she was no one, Ridley shared, emphasizing Rey's portrayal as powerful figure without significant family tie-ins in the Star Wars universe. But the plot twist didn't stop there. On episode 9, saw Rey's lineage pitched as Emperor Palpatine's grandchild by director J.J. Abrams, yet Ridley disclosed that uncertainty clouded this revelation shortly after its approval. Quoting here again, 2 weeks later, he was like, "We're not sure," Ridley revealed, highlighting the ongoing uncertainty that persisted till the trilogy's end. Daisy Ridley revealed on Jimmy Kimmel's Live that the Star Wars filmmakers lacked a concrete plan for Rey's character. She politely explained that Rey's identity and connections were in flux throughout the making of the films. Quoting here, "At the beginning, there was toying with an Obi-Wan connection," she said. "There were different versions. Then it really went to that she was no one. And then it came to episode 9, and JJ pitched as me the film and was like, 'Oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaddy.' I was like, 'Awesome.' And then 2 weeks later, he was like, 'Yeah, we're not sure.' So it kept changing over and over and over. And it's really, sad in a way. How can filmmakers not have a concrete idea of what they want to do? And this is one of the reasons why the Sequel Trilogy is completely confusing in many shapes and forms, more than what any other Star Wars media has ever done. So Ridley's revelation shed light on the intricate behind-the-scenes creative process, showcasing the challenges of crafting Rey's journey. The lack of a fixed plan for Rey's story led to varied interpretations, surprising and captivating audiences throughout the trilogy. These insights from a few years ago provide a fresh look at Rey's complex tales, illustrating the ever-evolving nature of storytelling within the Star Wars galaxy. The ongoing discussion about Rey's background continued to engage passionate Star Wars fans, adding depth to the legacy of the Sequel Trilogy. And now, back when I went to go watch the sequel trilogy in the theater, I was happy that Star Wars was back in the big screen, and then as I got more invested in the sequel trilogy, was leaving me so confused with the whole backstory of who Rey is. At first, the story gave me an idea of the Skywalker lineage, yet there was something off, and nothing seemed to connect. Therefore, with the revelations Daisy Ridley gave in the Jimmy Kimmel show, it gives us a better understanding why is Rey's story so confusing and vague. And another thing I have to note out is that the sequel trilogy was thought of way in the back when George Lucas was starting off with all this of Star Wars. And we can quote here Gary Kurtz, that he said, whether or not all 9 or 12 films actually get made depend on how George feels as time goes along. The series may happen the way he originally planned or completely change, which actually it all changed. As the films are made, each of these stories develops as each is finished. I think the direction of the saga may change a bit, and that is something that mind boggles me, that how, we all think that filming is, a concrete thing, like, oh, I got this story, I got this and that, there's no changing. But usually when you're within the project, when you're doing what you gotta do, it's when you actually start seeing the concrete ideas of what you wanted to portray with the film, TV show, cartoon, video game, book, or whatever it is that you were doing. So the sequel trilogy is the third installment of the Star Wars saga. It begins 30 years after Return of the Jedi and focuses on a conflict between the First Order, a military state and successor of the Galactic Empire, and Resistance, a military group opposing the First Order and successors to the Alliance to restore the Republic. The films were produced by Lucasfilm's President Kathleen Kennedy with Bad Robot Productions, having also helped produce The Force Awakens. The trilogy features the return of classic characters like Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Han Solo, Chewbacca, R2-D2, C-3PO, and Darth Sidious, as well as host of new characters, primarily focusing on the Force-sensitive scavenger Rey, the discerned First Order Stormtrooper Finn, and Kylo Ren, the son of Leia Organa and Han Solo, who is the master of the Knights of Ren and who had fallen into the dark side of the Force. Rumors of the sequel trilogy were being talked for decades, ever since George Lucas was the creator of Star Wars, and stated that he had plans for films that would take place after the original Star Wars trilogy as the canon saga develops. However, and hear me out, Lucas denied that the sequel trilogy would ever be made, stating that Star Wars was the story of Anakin Skywalker and that his story ended in Return of the Jedi. The development of the sequel trilogy was made official on October 30th, 2012, when the Walt Disney Company announced that it was acquiring Lucasfilms from Lucas, that they would be producing new Star Wars films beginning in 2015. So, I'm not gonna get into much detail with this. I talked about it on my radio show on December 15, and we can get things flowing and running with that. But once I get my girlfriend to finish the sequel trilogy completely, I'll give full on my thoughts on what the sequel trilogy had to offer, what was bad, what was good, what were her thoughts, my original thoughts, my new thoughts, and all that kind of stuff. Because every time you rewatch a TV show, a franchise, or a cartoon, play a video game again, read the book again, or watch the films again, you end up having a different perspective, or actually end up catching things that you didn't catch before. And those are things that I like to acknowledge when I rewatch things, So the early plans of the sequel trilogies, the prequels, stories exist where Darth Vader came to be. The whole story about Darth and Ben Kenobi, and it all takes place before Luke was born. The other ones, what happens to Luke afterwards, it's much more ethereal. I have a tiny book full of notes on that. If I'm really ambitious, I could proceed to figure out what would have happened to Luke. That's what George Lucas around the release of Empire Strikes Back said. The ideas of Star Wars sequel trilogies were in place as early as 1976, during the filming of the original film. Mark Hamill, who had started as Luke Skywalker in the 1977 film, recounted that George Lucas asked if he would be interested in appearing in Episode 9 around 2011, when Lucas assumed such a film would be made. According to Hamill, his character would be like Obi-Wan Kenobi, handling the lightsaber down to the next generation. So in 1978, after the handling and success of the A New Hope, Lucas told Time magazine that he would produce a sequel to A New Hope, and then 10 additional films, form a total of 4 Star Wars trilogies. In the early 1980s, both Hamill and Lucas repeatedly told the media that the sequels would be made in the 2000s. At first, he was considering making 12 films. Hear me out, 12 films, 3 of which were a couple of odd movies that focused only on subjects such as droids and Wookiees. Droids and Wookiees. That's crazy, if you ask me. They're so minor of a character. And I find that interesting. We do have the droid tales in cartoons. We do have the Wookiee stuff related on cartoons. And also, it would have been awesome to add more Ewoks, because we have the cartoons of the Ewoks, which I really enjoy. I thought I wasn't going to enjoy them, but they're pretty fun. But however, he abandoned this idea for those films and focused solely on the 9-part saga. At the time of the release of Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, Lucas confirmed that there were 7 further Star Wars films he wanted to make. He said he had multiple pages, outlines, and titles for those films. The sequel trilogy deals with characters that survive after Star Wars third and his adventure. Bantha Tracks calculated that if production of the 9-part Star Wars epic continued at the same rate, the 9th Star Wars film could be expected in spring of 2001, but it actually happened way later. So in 1979, Kenner Ad claimed that there were plans for 12 more blockbusting chapters of the Star Wars story. And according to Gary Kurtz, the producer of A New Hope, he and Empire Strikes Back, he said that Lucas' original idea for the sequel trilogy, which he described as a very vague, other than they involved Luke's journey into becoming a high-esteemed Jedi Knight like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and his ultimate confrontation against the Emperor, were eventually condensed into Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. As Lucas told Starlog in 1981, quoting here, "What seems like a great idea when it describes it 3 sentences doesn't hold together when you try to make 5 or 6 scenes out of it, So plots change a lot when they start and getting into script form, The original plans had been for Han Solo becoming a full-fledged Jedi and Leia becoming queen of the remaining people of Alderaan, and Luke finding his long-lost sister from the other side of the galaxy. Luke would have trained his sister as a Jedi, and together they would have confronted the Emperor on the imperial capital planet of Had Abaddon. Lucas allowed biographer Dale Pilog to read the plot outlines of a 12-film saga on the condition of signing a confidentiality agreement. Pollock said these sequel trilogies draft would involve Luke Skywalker in his 30s or 40s, and though Lucas allegedly planned to recast Hamill with an older actor due to reportedly being left dissatisfied with Hamill's performance, which I don't know, because for me, Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker. There's no other actor I could put him with. There's similar looking actors out there, but I can't see it any other way, So the thing is that there were 3 most exciting stories. They had propulsive action, really interesting new worlds, new characters, and I remember thinking, I want these 3 movies. Likewise, author Timothy Zahn had been briefed, by Lucas on his sequel plans when he had and was hired by Bantam Spectra to write the Thrawn trilogy, which nowadays Thrawn is like one of the characters that we mostly dearly love from the villains. This blue emperor, admiral, this blue admiral alien with the power that he has and all that stuff. It's great, it's amazing, and I love what he has done with the character and what everybody has done with the character, with Ahsoka, with Rebels, with the Timothy books. I love all the interpretations of the Grand Admiral Thrawn. It's one of my favorite villains at this point in time. I think he needs to be expanded a bit more, and that way we can get more out of Thrawn. So it's interesting how Lucasfilm had this idea for a sequel trilogy since the 70s, the 80s. There were so many different ideas thrown out there. We had the expanded universe with the books and the video games and the cartoons and all that were thrown out there and could give us a bit more of an insight of where we could take this. Everybody wanted to continue the Star Wars story, of the epic of Star Wars, in the galaxy far, far away. This story was too compelling and too awesome to be left behind. For me, Star Wars is one of the best franchise out there, one of the biggest IPs I can actually recollect in my mind that has been in my life this whole time. I wouldn't have it any other way. I would still, if I was born again, I would still rewatch every single Star Wars thing if I didn't know what Star Wars was again in my life. So, like I said, in a future episode, we're gonna have my girlfriend give her thoughts, her highlights, and everything that she enjoyed and not enjoyed from the sequel trilogy and her whole experience with Star Wars till that point. Maybe she'll throw in some hilarious thoughts here and there, because usually she is a little funny. But we can get things flowing here and there, and I would love to hear her thoughts on what she thinks of the sequel trilogy and all that. But anyways, this is a little brief part one of what we have to acknowledge from the sequel trilogy. Part two will be soon running out. And, Star Wars was originally thought away, and Disney, once they acquired it, they discarded so many storylines and so many lore that are not going to be considered canon anymore, and now they're legends. And we have to have ourselves acquired into different ideas of what we could expect from future installments of Star Wars when it comes to the big screen, because we already have the story in animation and TV pretty outlined, pretty thrown out there with a vast amount of information. So anyways, thank you all for listening, thank you all for being here, and may the force be with you. This was the recorded version of my radio show. If you want to catch me on air every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 21 hours Eastern Time or 9 p.m. Eastern Time, you can get yourself running with that at Puerto Rico time, and listening to me live with some more in-depth details of what I talk, and with some music in between every now and then. So let's enjoy ourselves, let's get running, and let's go. May the force be with you, and let's roll that outro. Adios, amigos. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.
Unleash your creativity with 30% off an annual Skillshare membership. Explore classes on art, film, instrument learning, video game scoring, music mixing, and much more. Join Skillshare today and dive into your creative passions. Link on screen or www.andrevanzark.com/discount.
ChatWave Radio.
Hosted by Andrew Van Zark. Now you're listening with power. The sponsor of my stream and podcast is DistroKid. If you want 10% off on your first subscription with DistroKid, release your music to the world on every major music platform. Make sure to go to my website, andrewvanzark.com, and click on the discount link under the tab of DistroKid.